All right, CvCISO podcast listeners, welcome. Welcome to episode 53 of the CvCISO podcast. I don't know if you knew this, but yesterday was an important day. It's a day that it started the Mental Health Awareness Month, the whole month of May. So we're going to kick it off this podcast, which should launch probably a week into it. But the day we're recording it is the second day, so May 2nd. And we're going to talk about Mental Health Awareness Month. We're going to talk about our own stories. We're going to talk about what it means to us and what we plan to do about it, this month. And maybe you as a listener can take some of these tips and tricks and just improve your quality of life. I don't know if you knew this either, but CvCISO or vCISO or your job should not define you. So this is important. I think an important topic for us. It makes me a better security person when I'm mentally healthy. So joining me as usual is, well, I'm Evan Francine, if you don't know the voice, but joining me is Jordan with two O's.
Jordan?
Or
No,
Don.
I do have two O's.
You do have two O's, yeah.
So I was the only man, sorry to interrupt the introductions, but I was the only man that I know of that was spelled Jordan, or only person, Jordan with an O, and I always thought that was because, that's the masculine way of saying Jordan, but now Bill Belichick's girlfriend is Jordan with an O.
Yeah, but it's Bill Belichick's girlfriend. I mean, you're better than that.
It's kind of masculine.
Yeah, I think you're masculine.
In a way. Yeah.
But also joining me is...
I'm no longer the only Jordan with an O.
You're not. Meg is joining us. Meg, say hi.
Hello.
Hello. And then Dave. Dave is here.
Cheers.
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 Cafe.
So while we have this, while we're recording right now, I have up on another screen the National Alliance on Mental Illness, so NAMI.org, which is, I think, a great place to start if you don't know anything about Mental Health Awareness Month. And the theme for their campaign is "In every story, there's strength," which I totally agree with. I think one of the most powerful ways you can help somebody else is to share your own testimony, is to share your own story of how you navigated your own challenges.
What was that URL again? I'm at, I must have missed something. I went to MAMI and I got Movimento Allenamento Materno Italiano.
Yeah, you just stay there. That's the right website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You may be one step ahead of us there, Jordan.
Yeah. You're always kind of leading on these things a little bit. No, it's N as in Nancy.
NAMI.
A is Nami.
Not Mammy.
Not Mammy Mommy. It's my Nammy Nami, not my Mammy Mommy. Come on now.
There we go.
All right, then. All right. So turning your struggles into strength. I don't know about you guys. I'll start if you want, but I've certainly had my own share, and it's not a competition by any means. And I think that's one of the problems with mental health is the stigma comes from comparing yourself to other people. You see these external reflections that people portray as they walk around the day-to-day or post on social media. And I think to a consumer of those perceptions, you can draw the conclusion that, yeah, they got their shit together. They must have, things must be good. I don't feel that way. When I'm self-aware and I'm looking at myself and I'm being honest with myself, I'm struggling today. So then you go look at these external things and you start comparing yourself, and then you start to believe that something's wrong with me. Like, I'm just broken. And here's the real truth, in my opinion, is we're all broken. That's part of life, right? Life isn't a straight path, with a level ground everywhere. Life is a bunch of big hills, a bunch of big, valleys. I live in Mexico. I don't think there's a single road here that's straight. I don't think, it's a lot of cobblestone. I twist my ankle everywhere I go. It reminds me of that's kind of what life is like, just trying to walk down the hill from my house to the beach.
It's a boring straight road when you can have a windy, bumpy one.
Well, that's the thing for me and my mental health challenges is I actually, when I'm self-aware, when I'm honest with myself, I actually learn to appreciate the challenges because the challenges give me opportunities to be better than I was before. I burned out numerous times in this career. Um, Now, the last time I burned out, it was like, all right, I know what this feels like. I've been here before. Part of me was like angry that I didn't see it coming again. And part of me was like, all right, I identified it much earlier than I did last time, and I know how to handle it better. But I think the point I'm sort of trying to make starting off is we share our stories about mental health challenges. But the point isn't to compare yourself with somebody else. The point is to be honest with yourself. There's like this internal, private conversation that I have regularly with myself. And when I find that I can't solve certain things or things seem unhealthy to me, in that honesty, recognizing that maybe I need to go talk to somebody. Maybe I need some help here because I'm having trouble resolving this. Like maybe it's, there's bouts of depression. I'm not a diagnosed, like I've had depression, like I'm not diagnosed that way, but it doesn't mean I don't have depression. It doesn't mean I don't have, it's different degrees. Like the last few days before this podcast, I've really been lacking any motivation and I felt depressed. But as somebody who is really working on being self-aware, if this doesn't end in the next few days by adjustments that I've made personally, well, then I need to reach out. Because your physical health, mental health, spiritual health, they all play off of each other. They're not separate.
Hey, Evan. Oh, go ahead, Meg. I'm sorry.
I just think that, like, I totally agree with everything you're saying, Evan. Having kind of that outlet. I mean, I've been pretty transparent about my own mental health issues, and a lot of times I think when you suffer from mental health issues, it's a very internalized disease. So it's something that you just live with in your own mind, in the way that you think, in the way that you present yourself. And I like to call it a silent or an invisible disease, because people don't look at you and say, "Oh man, she's got mental health issues," but on a daily basis, people with mental health issues struggle with just getting out of bed sometimes, and isolation, and in a lot of different ways that it manifests itself. So having that outlet of somebody, a group, a person, a therapist, having that outlet, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
To deal with it.
I agree. On the homepage of NAMI.org, there are 9 questions. And these are sample questions to start sharing your story. That's the heading that it's under. But I think these are really cool questions, and I'd like to ask them of you 3 and see what your answers are. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. I guess the only wrong answer would be a dishonest one. So be as honest as you can. The first question, and for the listeners, like, play along with us, as you try to immerse yourself in kind of this same mental health thing, right? So number 1, what do you wish people knew about mental health? And we'll start with you, Dave. What do you wish people knew about mental health?
It would somewhat parlay off what Meg was saying, where I remember this during COVID, where, we would just go through a day and you ask somebody how they're doing and you hear good, you know, and you really don't, you only know how good they're doing based on when they really open up and tell you. Good doesn't say anything, and you don't really know where they're at until they kind of share with you, because when it's mental, it's not visible up front. You know, if someone's having trouble getting up in the day, dealing with depression or anxiety, whatever it may be, you don't visually see that. And I think that that's led a lot of people to be ignorant about mental health, and that mental health is, you know, we've all been around the sun enough times that there's more talk about mental health now than when we were in our 20s. You know, it's become more aware. So just that awareness and ability to communicate, that's what I wish there was a greater awareness of.
Awesome. And now, Jordan, what about you? What do you wish people knew about mental health? Mental health.
Well, my answer might be different than the spirit of the question, but or maybe it's right in the same vein. What I think is, I wish people knew how to respond when you're in a situation where someone is talking about their mental health struggles. You know, I had a situation the other day, because I do intentionally try to make it something to talk about, and kind of remove the stigma, and so sometimes that opens up people to say, oh, he's a safe person to talk to. And so I've had people come up to me and share some things that they're going through. And to be honest, I'm like, most of the time I'm just scared to death, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to respond right. I don't know what to say. I don't know what's appropriate. I don't know if what I'm going to say is going to help or hurt the situation. And so I wish I knew more about how to respond in those situations.
Hey, I'm going to give you a resource because it really, really helped me. It's called Mental Health First Aid. So if you Google that, Mental Health First Aid, it's a course that you can take. And they're very clear about drawing the line between being a mental health professional and being a friend. But it helps you to navigate those things and point people in the right direction. Yeah, mental health first aid. I went through it, and all the leadership team at FR Secure went through it. Uh, and I think we need to go. I think we've done it a couple times. I only did it once, but um,
Is it mentalhealthfirstaid.org? Like, that's the URL?
yeah, that might be.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll help you that, because what we don't, I think what we don't want also is for you to be scared. To the what if I say the wrong thing? I mean, it's really, most of it, I think, just comes out of love, genuine care for somebody. They pick up on that. They're paying attention more to you know that than they are the specific words you're giving them. You know what I mean? They're picking up on the feeling of safety and that you genuinely care and love them versus, okay, what did you say again? Jordan, you mental health professional guy, they know you're not a mental health professional, probably.
I can say I all the time, one of the first things I say is, you should talk to a professional.
Yeah,
I'll tell you some things that I think, but
that's great. Marlis, my wife, just on the way home from coffee like a couple of days ago, uh, we're just driving, just me and her in the truck, and she looks over and she goes, I think I'm going to see a therapist. I'm like, awesome. Heck yeah. Because I think sometimes we feel like, especially in like marital situations, like if my wife goes and sees a therapist, they might find something wrong in me. You know what I mean? Like her and the therapist will be talking and be like, "Yeah, your husband's an asshole," and be like, "Oh shit."
Yeah,
figure out the root cause.
the root of the issue.
Right. I think in that self-awareness, you pick up on that right away. This isn't about me. My wife wants to see a therapist. I think therapists are healthy. I think everybody should go see a therapist. Just because you see a therapist, you don't need to go see a therapist just because something's wrong. You can go see a therapist to reinforce the things that are right. I mean, therapists are so helpful because it's an independent third party who is not, doesn't have a vested interest in what you're going to do or whatever, that you can just bounce shit off of. You can just dump shit on. I don't have that anywhere else. I can't do that to my wife because we got an emotional attachment. I might make her angry, but
Well, and
anyway,
it's
sorry.
great. It's
That's a
great
long
too
answer.
because with professionals, that they're, especially if they're a good one. One thing I would say to people that are kind of kicking that can around is that it's not as intimidating as you think. I mean, these are people that they're not necessarily going to just sit there and go, yeah, all right, here's my prescription. Like they talk through it. They have they're intelligent on what tools are available that you can just put in your tool belt to access when you need it. And not every tool works for everyone. So like having someone that is well versed and educated in those things, you know, it's not like they're gonna just give you some sort of I mean, every spectrum is different, I'm sure, but like, it's not
I
as
get pissed off
intimidating.
at my therapist. I get pissed off at my therapist regularly.
He
That's
tries to
part
make
of
you solve your own problems.
yes.
Because
Yes.
he's right.
Oh yeah. Well, generally he's probably right, but I get pissed off because it's like, hey, give me a solution to this. Let's go. He's like, well, you're gonna have to work through that yourself. I'm like, well, what fucking are you then? What am I paying you for? And he's like, you'll find out. And I'm like, all right, whatever. So, Meg, we got to get that question out of you too. What do you wish people knew about mental health?
I think a lot of times, I think when you are a person that it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, that it's a silent disease, sometimes not so silent, but it's having, the awareness and the understanding and empathy and compassion for people that, because I'll just speak from my own experience, like, um, there's nobody that's a bigger enemy towards me than myself.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times you're operating from that place. And I think, the therapy is super important because you start to deal with the litmus test for therapy is it's not always just a place to go and vent your stuff, right? Like true healing happens when you dive into past trauma, life circumstances, things that have been a part of the way that you think and that you process information for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's undoing those negative thoughts and perceptions. So, I wish people, a lot of times people can just respond to like the surface level, Meg, instead of, truly having compassion and understanding some of the underlying issues.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah.
And for me, just to, the one thing I wish people knew about mental health is, I'll just be direct. The stigma is bullshit.
Sure.
The stigma keeps people from being honest with themselves, being honest with each other. It keeps them in their prison. For lack of the analogy is like a prison. I'm struggling. I'm having issues. I'm not happy. My life sucks, but I can't talk to anybody about it because what are they going to think about me? Am I going to lose that Am I going to lose that promotion? Screw all of that shit. None of that stuff. The stigma's bullshit. Just keep
The
reminding
truth of the
yourself.
matter, though, is that it does matter because people can't handle the information many times.
But that's fine. I mean, that's fine. You still can't not have it. You know what I mean? It's the ignorance that that plays a big part in you being in your prison today. Is that you? And it's scary. I think it's risky to share your mental health issues. So, you want to use discernment and try to find the right people to talk to out of the gate. If your boss is just an asshole, maybe that's not the best place to share first. So look for somebody who has shown empathy, but don't let the stigma trick you into not sharing, because that so many times in my own life, that's been the killer.
Yeah.
They didn't share with anybody. And then, the normal processing when somebody takes their own life, if it goes that way, is people that are left behind that did care are always wondering, what could I have done? What did I miss? What signs did I miss? And every single time in my life, it's been, I didn't even know this shit about these people. These people were close to me. And I didn't know that they had this other things. They had this other life. You know what I mean? And, I think what I took from that is I'm just going to keep reinforcing that the stigma is bullshit, so that the one thing I can do as being somebody who's still here is not question myself about, did I say anything? You know what I mean? Did I make it feel safe? Did they not approach me because they didn't feel like I was going to care? So if I keep preaching the stigma is bullshit, hopefully that, opens that door a little bit.
Yeah. Well, to your point on that, that's kind of what somebody goes through internally, to navigate and reach out. And I'm comparing that even to what Jordan was saying. So, Jordan, even if you're saying, hey, I wish I had better resources or stuff, don't underestimate the value that person sees in you as a person, because they've approached you on this. They are incredibly being transparent, vulnerable, and open to you. So it isn't necessarily that you have the answer, but there is that reciprocal empathy that you can be for that person. And it just kind of hearing what everybody's saying, it kind of makes me see it in that bit of a circle there.
Yeah, my son was a police officer in Lenexa, Kansas, and was a really eye opener to me, because it was during COVID time and George Floyd stuff and everything, and so I was concerned about his mental health. So I went down to Kansas City to see him, and check in. How you doing? And when I asked him, do you have mental health resources? And like, yeah, the police department has lots of mental health resources, but nobody uses them. I'm like, why doesn't anybody use them? And he said, well, and he looked at me like, duh, it's obvious. Like, it's a career limiting move. It's frowned upon. So then I'm like, well, why the hell would you have it anyway if you're not going to use it? And instead of penalizing people for confronting their mental health issues, why don't you reward them?
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather, on my team, have somebody who's so honest with themselves that they're committed to working on really difficult parts of their life, because that makes them a much better employee. I want to reward that behavior, as opposed to, oh, how dare you be honest with yourself? Just get the damn work done. You know what I mean? It's, especially in law enforcement and first responder type situations where you have to make those split second decisions. If you're not mentally in a good spot, you kill people. People die. All right. So the second question is,
the old saying is, hurt people hurt people.
That's, oh God, that's so true.
Yeah.
The worst days of my life, that's exactly what happens. And fighting addiction. Yeah, I was really good at hurting people. But then that leads to a thing. And I was talking to a friend last night, because we talk openly about mental health stuff, and we both, have our alcohol problems and what have you. And it was really cool because he made a decision. No, it was at work. So there was an incident that happened at work, a cybersecurity incident, and he recognized that his own fault in it, and he owned it. in front of the team, right? That's like, dude, that's amazing. I mean, that's great. Now you have a path that you need to take, like mentally, at least this is how I'm seeing it, like guilt or conviction, which way are you going? Because when you own something and you fess something up, meaning, okay, I was at fault. I made the mistake. You're going to let guilt come now or conviction? Guilt tears you down. Guilt lingers. Guilt reminds you of how insufficient. Yeah, shames for sure. Good word. Conviction is building up. I made a mistake. I'm going to be better for it. I learned from this. I screwed up. I'm going to be better. So one builds you up, one tears you down. And so I was sharing that with him, and he was like, "Dude, that's awesome." And he said, "I've heard you say that numerous times, but I forget almost every time."
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I also nothing wrong with that. I also forget, but the fact that you shared your story with me reminded me of this. So you reminded me, I reminded you. We both come out better here. That's the importance, I think, of sharing your stories.
Yeah.
One example.
Great point.
It's and it just happened, last night before I went to bed. And I actually learned that from a pastor, and he simplified it even more, went a step further and said that guilt comes from Satan, conviction comes from Jesus.
Yeah.
And I carry that with me all the time. It's those bits of wisdom that remind me, like, okay, I'm beating the shit. I am my own worst enemy, just like Meg said. I beat the shit out of myself all the time. I don't need somebody to beat me up.
Exactly.
And then I get to this, like, okay, this is guilt or conviction. If it's guilt, it's, I actually say it out loud, which makes me sound even crazier. But again, I don't care necessarily what you think. I say, fuck you, Satan.
The other thing
gets it out of me.
The other thing I think that, I don't know, I think about this a lot just because, many times when you are struggling with mental health issues, and of course the process is you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist because they're the ones that prescribe medicine, and then you may do therapy on top of that. The medicine piece, nobody's talking about how diet and exercise can help with mental health. Like when you go to these, when you humble yourself and go to seek out the help that you need, there's like the quick fix way of just going to meds. And I wish that a part of that conversation was the importance and value of what you put in your body and how you take care of your body and how that can help people with mental health issues. Not always. I'm not saying that medicine is not necessary at all. I'm on meds. But I think there's that missing piece in how we treat and handle it.
What you just said reinforced what I believe, which makes me feel good that I'm not myself crazy, that mental, physical, and spiritual health cannot be separated from each other. They make you the holistic human that you are.
Right.
And so, especially during COVID, that was the part that was so damaging, I think, to people, as we focused so much on the physical health piece, we forgot the mental health piece. And so while people were sure protecting themselves from the COVID virus, blah, 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 by whatever they were doing, mentally they were deteriorating and killing themselves. Because if you
and I don't think we've recovered.
No, hell no.
As a society.
No, we just tried to move forward.
We certainly have a mental health, in my opinion, we have a mental health crisis.
Epidemic,
yeah.
Seriously.
All right, so the next question, and we may not get to all these questions, but I do encourage listeners to go to nami.org and review these questions yourself. We did the first question, what do you wish people knew about mental health? The next one is, what misconceptions about mental health do you encounter in your work? And so We started with Dave last time. Let's start with Jordan this time. What misconceptions about mental health do you encounter in your work? And if you can't think of something specifically in your work, think about maybe your industry, the people you interface outside of just your employer, if you don't want to go there.
You know, I'll give you both answers quickly. The in my work, I think the misconception is that work is not the place to talk about it. It's I think it's as much as you kind of try to say that to break the stigma, there's still a large amount of people that do not feel comfortable in the work environment talking about it. Probably going back to Meg's point, where it's like, do you really know if your boss is going to be, you deal with it in a empathetic way or not? And you might not know until you try, and then all of a sudden, who knows? But there's usually crickets. Aside from maybe a handful of people that have tapped me on the shoulder individually, no one talks about it. No one typically talks about it in a group setting, which is probably fine. But I guess that would be the first thing that I thought of, is just that, like, there's still that stigma, and it doesn't seem like the right environment that they want to bring it up in. But outside of that, you know, there's there is a thirst for it. Like in the information security industry, in our local chapter for the CvCISO, like, it is most people's favorite time of the meeting is to go around and just check in on that mental health piece. And so it's a weird thing. It's like in your actual existing work, it's still kind of this silence, and I don't know if I feel safe doing this in this environment. I don't want to open up a can of worms or anything. But then, colleagues outside in a group, in the information security world at least, like, people know that they're struggling and they need other people around them to relate to it.
Cool. Meg, what do you think? What misconceptions about mental health do you encounter?
I think probably just, I think it's very hard for people to identify and relate if they don't have those struggles. As I said, I'm my own worst enemy. I think at work in particular, I go to therapy weekly, and I think people can go to therapy to just spew everything out and regurgitate what happened during the week and how it was, horrible or whatever. My goal in therapy is that I want to get better. And so in work life, I think that there's a kind and gentle way to give positive and constructive feedback to people when that if people can have empathy and understand the underlying stuff, but still have the ability to communicate constructive feedback. I think a lot of times, and just speaking for myself, like, I want to be better. I want to be a better employee. I want to be a better wife. I want to be a better mom. And I think a lot of times we just shy away from those conversations. And part of that is just, again, going back to the people don't always know how to handle it.
Right. Right. Good point. Dave, what about you? What misconceptions about mental health do you encounter?
I don't know if it's necessarily a misconception, but in the environments, what I'm trying to say is how important culture is. Whether it's at work or at home, or where you're at. If you're in a non-supportive culture-esque environment. You need to do you need to do a self-check and see if that's the best place for you to be. There's that kind of self-awareness of who am I and what is a good environment for me. And that all has to come from within. There is that self-check of yourself. And then because I've run into people that needed the job that they had and the environment sucked, but they needed the money, and it was just, you tried to find a way to break that cycle. So I don't know if it's necessarily a misconception, but trying to find that holistic balance of where someone's at.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions that I seem to see is that, oh, you have a mental health issue, you can fix it, as opposed to embracing it. You know what I mean? It's not always about fixing. Like with me and my ADHD, I don't want you to fix it, because there's certain things in my own mental health struggles that the more I explore it, the more I understand it, the more I can use it to my advantage. It almost like becomes like a superpower. But then there's also the backside of it, which is if it's not managed, if it's not well understood, if it's not kept in its place, it'll destroy everything. And that's why, I think therapists have been good for me. Honest, open conversations with people has been good for me. I think there's also a misconception that something bad is going to happen to me if I share it.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit, because there's something bad that's going to happen to you. Like, let's say you lose your job. Let's say you lose your house. Let's say you lose your marriage. Is that worse than losing your sanity? Is that worse than living in the prison you currently live in? You know what I mean? And you find out that most of those fears are bullshit anyway. Because if you did share it, I mean, like if I shared my mental health issues with my wife and she left me, it's like, maybe it wasn't a good marriage to begin with.
Right.
And maybe I should be grateful for that. I would rather have the freedom of exploring who I am, who I actually am. I would put that over anything else. Job, finances, house, possessions, relationships. It's that important. And I think there's this misconception of that, because your mind tells you, well, if you share this with anybody, you might lose your job. It might make it a hell of a lot worse. I mean, how the hell are you going to pay your bills? Blah, 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 blah. Screw it. That also all just lies and misconceptions, I think.
You touched on something else that kind of hit a nerve with me in a good way, where, without getting into detail on it, do have a family member that had struggled with emotional challenges. And I was at that time very, very ignorant to all of this. So it made me have to be a much, much better Dave to understand it. And that's been a North Star of mine. But what you touched on was, I remember when it first happened, being as ignorant as I was, you kind of think about it like, okay, if somebody broke an arm, it's going to go in a cast, there's going to be X amount of time, and then theoretically you're back to where you were and you have your arm with its mobility. With the emotional challenges, there wasn't that begin end phase. It was, this is what we're going to have, and this is how we're going to have to navigate with it as optimally as possible. And then being able to be that supportive person there in that. But that was, you just kind of touched on it, and it reminded me where there was a recalibration I had to do personally.
I do think that I mean, I personally refuse to believe that it's not curable, that you can't heal from this. I feel like that's that it takes deep and intensive work. But there are ways that you can start to live beyond your mental health issues. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
that to me is, I mean, I hang on to that because I don't want to live in this misery forever. I want to be able to um, look at things and not see things from such a negative perspective all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think that brings up another misconception, because I agree with you too. And a misconception is that all mental health issues, disorders are the same. They're different. Some of them I think are very curable. I think some of them are, you hope for management. What's rooted in all of them, though, is this honesty, this truth, this love that you need to have to navigate through all of it. Because, yeah, I agree that things can be cured, but they're never going to be cured unless you confront it. Go after the root cause, not the symptoms.
Takes work, for sure.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. For sure it does. I've seen you go through your work, and it becomes inspiring, though. Meg, I've used that word with you many times, that you're an inspiration, not just in this, but also in your career. You switched careers as a female, in your 60s, 50s?
Late 50s.
Late 50s. Who does that shit? That's a bold, fearless move, right? So look at those things and use those as like fuel to confront other issues that you're having, because the people that are watching you are inspired by it.
Yeah. Thank you, Evan.
It's truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we got time maybe for two more of these questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up. I like this question. It's the third from the bottom. It says, in one word, describe your mental health journey. And Meg, we'll start with you this time, because we've already started with Dave and Jordan. So in one word, describe your mental health journey.
Well, of course, the first word that comes to my mind is from a negative place. The first word that came to my mind was miserable.
Okay.
I mean, if I could sit and think about it a little bit, if I could shut out that voice, I'd say hopeful.
Okay. Very cool. How about you, Dave? In one word, describe your mental health journey.
The word would be marathon.
Okay.
Good. It's not a sprint. It's a long run. And like you said earlier, just, there's hills, there's valleys, and just being up for the long run.
Nice. Jordan, how about you? In one word, describe your mental health journey.
Roller coaster. I think that's what first came to my mind is there's ups, there's downs. Sometimes it's exhilarating. Sometimes it's a little bit scary. Sometimes you don't know what's about to happen. You don't know how you're going to deal with it. Sometimes you are dizzy afterwards because you went through too many loops, and sometimes you're excited. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think for me, it's, I don't know, hard, but also, I mean, I guess if I chose one word, it'd be hard. But I kind of like hard. Because I also feel, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, unique. I feel like my mental health journey is unique. It's personal to me. Sure, we put diagnoses around these things like, depression, ADHD, but even in that, it's unique. Nobody else has gone through the same things that I'm going through. Nobody else will ever go through this, all these. So, because I think that stops me from looking for other people to always relate to and give me answers to my questions. I'm a unique individual. I'm built. Nobody else is ever going to be built like this. So why would I expect anybody else's mental health journey to be exactly like mine? There's going to be things that are certainly similar, parts of my journey that are the same as yours, but the overall journey it's unique. And I think it's hard, but I think it's beautiful. I really do, because I look back at the problems and the challenges over the years, and I have no regrets. I'm very grateful for those because they helped to make me who I am now. If you don't go through the hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for anybody who's on the journey, hard doesn't mean never give up. Never, ever. You don't know what's on the other side of anything. You don't know what's happening tomorrow. You don't know what's happening 5 minutes from now, 2 seconds from now. You don't know what's happening behind your back. You don't know what's happening on the other side of the world. You don't know how all these things relate to making your journey, whatever your journey is going to be. And it seems like the people in my life, like when I've been just about ready to give up on something, not life necessarily, but something I was working hard on, I always got like I didn't give up. And then right on the other side of that moment when I wanted to give up was the glory. It's just right fucking there. And there's other times when I did give up and I was like, oh man, if I just would have kept going a little bit. So I don't know.
Man,
Hard, I
Evan,
guess, is still the word.
I mean, it's a part of the way humans are wired. I just saw a clip yesterday, and it keeps coming up like, oh, share this clip, because it was from Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about like this idea that, look, humans weren't wired for comfort. They were wired for doing difficult things and challenging, and when you seek too much comfort, that's when you start feeling depressed. He said, he's like, sure, if you want to, there's times if I were to say, yeah, today I'm just gonna binge watch TV and eat crap, yeah, that might seem like fun, but afterwards I feel like shit. And he's like, well, when I go do something challenging and push through it and work hard, I feel better. And he's like, this it's part of being human, is to keep struggling, challenging yourself, doing hard things, and with that comes failure.
Yeah.
But with that comes what you said, glory on the other side as well.
Yeah.
Comfort's an idol, man. I'm totally convinced of that.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
know?
another word I wanted to throw out there was, I really feel like survivor.
There you go.
You know, that's
Yeah.
just that kind of, I don't know, throughout my life, just thinking of the ebbs and flows of dealing with this and repeatedly coming out ahead of where I was at some point. And that continued growth over time.
Awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. And in my own like short walk with you, I saw this person who was, I think, I didn't know that you were hiding things, that there were things below the surface. But you were one of those people, I think, that was putting off this, like, everything's great all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then the pressure came and things started to crack. And then, you know what I mean? And then, and as a person, trying to support and love you, but also, walk a little bit with you, it was, from my perception, it was like, I'm a positive guy. I mean, I was like, this is positive.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to these issues if you want what's on the outside to reflect what's really going on the inside. You know what I mean? To make it all, instead of being like this fake persona, it's like, no, this is the real Meg. And I think the way you get to that, and the real Evan and the real Jordan and the real Dave, I think the way you got to get to that is to be real. There's so much pressure in the world today to not be real, to be some fake version of yourself, whether it be social media, whether it be, in community outings, whether it be in your own church, right? How many times do you go to church and everything's great. Yeah, praise God. It's awesome. It's like you're filing bankruptcy and your dog just died. How the fuck can everything be great right now? I mean, really? Yeah, fuck, praise Jesus. Like, all right, we're not processing, you know? So, I mean, I guess with age comes wisdom, and you only get wisdom though through pain.
Yeah.
If you want to earn wisdom, the only way you're going to get it is experience with pain.
Mm-hmm.
So the pain that you're going through is producing so much wisdom. And if you're a believer in God, like I am, in my worldview, you're creating a whole bunch of wisdom for the glory of God. Like that's the kind of praise God I'm looking for, but not the fake, like, yeah, everything's great. House just burned down. My dog died. My daughter's addicted to drugs, but hey, everything's great. Praise Jesus.
Have you ever had one of those moments? I feel like this is what happens. You spend so much time trying to look all right, but have you ever been in a moment where you start crying and you're just kind of like, I don't know why I'm crying right now. Maybe you're talking to someone about something, and I mean, I don't know how. Maybe this, not all men maybe are criers, but I cry. But like sometimes I was talking to my brother the other day, and you know, and all of a sudden I'm talking about something, and this thing that's kind of coming to an end in my life, and all of a sudden I just start weeping, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man, I don't know why I'm crying right now, like, and and to me that's kind of like, well, it's because you had this stuff inside and you haven't let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to process, man. And emotions are real things, right? Denying that they exist is just, I think, perpetuating the lie you're telling yourself, and it's probably just piling on a whole bunch of baggage.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to have to process. So I like the fact that I cry too. Like I will watch a movie, and my wife doesn't. I think she says I'm not emotional. I think, lady, you ain't emotional, because how could you not be crying at that damn story right now? I'm watching on the movie. I'm bawling my eyes out, and she's like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "Yeah." Why are you crying?
Every Disney movie makes me cry. I'm sitting there weeping with my kids. They're like, "What are you crying?" Yeah. Why aren't you? You hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other side, like for men, like my men friends, if they cry from physical pain, then I jump on their ass. I'm like, you pussy. Come on. I mean, physical pain, take it. But yeah, emotional pain, man, we all got it. I think you're more of a man if you're sharing it. I think you're more of a man because it shows that you're honest. So, that's another part of the stigma. Like men don't show emotions. Hell no, they better. We better. I think we're supposed to, and we're built for it. All right. So last question. We'll wrap this thing up. And I love this conversation, man. It's real.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many things you can take away from just being real. So the last question is, what motivates you to be an ally in the mental health movement? And Jordan, we'll start with you.
Motivates me to be an ally. My kids. Well, really, actually, the start of this is I need it. So just like you were saying, like when you share, then I share, we share, and suddenly everyone got something out of it, because it's like you might even say this idea that, or I might say an idea that really it's like, man, that's what I needed to hear. Like I had this nugget of wisdom that I knew, and it took you to say something for me to get it out, and now you got value from it, and I got value from it, and so what motivates me is uh, making sure that I'm healthy, making sure that my kids have a healthy dad as an example, and so that they're healthy and not trapped in these prisons, and my wife as well, and that's my motivation.
Nice. Love it, man. How about you, Meg? What's your motivation to be an ally?
Kind of the same, just like my own personal journey, but also I think we're in a very interesting time in our society because there's definitely been an more awareness of mental health, and it's been brought kind of to the surface, and people talk about it more. But we've also seen a tremendously large jump in people that have mental health issues, and so I feel inspired, especially when I see some of the struggles that my own children have, um, to show strength through mental health issues, and for people to know and understand and believe is a big part of it, that you can get better, that there is hope, that there are activities. CBT is a big part of mental health therapy, and there are different ways that you can um, encourage your brain to start to develop new neural pathways. It's
Yeah.
really what it
And
is.
for the listeners who don't know what CBT stands for, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, right?
Yes.
There's also that CBT thing that comes from the oil, I guess, from, is there a CBT? What's that called? That, not oil, but like the marijuana thing. You got the CBT.
Well, that's
Is that
CBD.
CBD? See, okay. Because
That's
I was
good.
looking at
Yeah.
you guys I was looking at you guys on the screen. I'm like, you don't know what I'm talking about? And I'm like, okay, it's because I also don't know what I'm talking about, but I didn't know what it was. But
He
whenever I heard,
says that oil thing. I'm
well,
thinking
I don't
like
know what the
really
hell it is.
oil.
No, I don't know what it is. I've never taken it or anything, but I have been through, and I am in CBT. This one, the cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a lot of research that goes into that. And I think a lot of people that are using that type of therapy. It's good.
My current therapist is a Christian woman, and I specifically sought out a Christian therapist because that's important to me. And our first session together, she really gave me a great parallel of CBT and God, because God is all about love and acceptance and kindness and generosity and all those things. And CBT practices is really about that self-care, self-love, all the things that Christ is for us, we need to be for ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And I also, we talk, because I don't know if we all are Christians. We don't even, it doesn't, that's not what matters, because what matters to me in my life, what matters to you, Meg, in your life, and Jordan and Dave, is this relationship. When I say spiritual, I think because mental health isn't reserved just for Christians either. You know
Sure.
what I mean? It's, but it in the realm of just spiritual health, I think the one thing about, or not spiritual, but mental health is having a spiritual something to grab onto is something that's bigger than you. It's something that gives you a perspective outside of yourself that's true, that's honest, that's good inherently. That's the, I think, application in the mental health thing for me anyway. I put a name to it. The name is Jesus. But I think you can also be probably a Muslim and others and have mental health things. I can only speak as an outsider of that because I don't, I'm not like that. Right, Dave, how about you? What motivates you to be an ally in the mental health movement?
Um, Dude, again, you kind of hit a nerve there where it overlaps with faith and spirituality. So point being, the mental health ends up being a subset of everything, and just foundationally, um, I'm just a believer that we all are interconnected in some way and that we all are part of something larger. So pretty much my desired behavior is to live in service to others. And because with that belief that if I'm living in service to others and if we're all connected, I'm lifting myself up at the same time along with everybody else. So that ends up being, when we apply it to mental health, it's the same mindset for me in that regard. And that's kind of where my thoughts go on this.
That's cool. Super cool.
The quantum sayings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like controversial things because it expands. You talk about comfort, right? If something's controversial to me, it gets me out of my comfort zone, right? To explore something that maybe either disproves something that I've always believed in or creates a new something. But it's kind of like a mental adventure when people bring up. And I always look for two things, and I think I've shared this before. As long as the conversation is respectful and uplifting, right? And the only way you can have that is with respect. And the way you can quickly identify if you're talking about something controversial is when people change the subject or attack your character. Right. That's usually when I'm like, all right, screw it. This isn't worth my time anymore.
Conversation's over.
Yeah. But that's how you explore these things, these controversial topics. So what motivates me to be an ally in the mental health movement is it's similar to all of what you guys said. And I get the advantage of going last in every one of these questions. So I get to take little tidbits of each one of your awesome answers, put it into my own answer, and then everybody's like, "Oh my God, Evan is so wise." I just told you the secret of exactly what I was doing the whole time. I know,
Yeah.
like, wow, that Evan is so smart. But I think what motivates me is love. I don't like people. I love people. It's a difference, and people disagree with the way I approach this, but love to me is a choice. I get to choose whether or not I want to love people. And whereas liking to me is something I can't really control. It's like either I like you or I don't. I can't really choose that. But on the love side of things, I want what's best for people. I don't want people to suffer. I hate when seeing people get taken advantage of. So, that motivates most of the things, I think that I do. And going back to the spiritual thing and the spiritual tie-in for me is I know I'm going to die someday. And when I die, I just want to hear Jesus say, well done. Right. And my approach to the world is I've seen all the blessings that I've got. I've seen all the wonderful people, and this is, you just feel called to love other people. That's it. So I love you guys. And I want the best for you guys. All right. Good episode. Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying
Are
to
we
find
going
the
to share
calendar
them
right
with
now.
each other?
All right, if I have to, but I sometimes forget to put on underwear. I'm probably going to forget to share it with you. I'm good at farting.
Like those tears. Yeah. You don't want to hold it in.
That's right.
No
All right.
one would.
Whose topic is it next week?
Next week is Jordan.
All right, Jordan. Come prepared, my friend.
Let me check and make sure. Yes, Jordan and then myself.
All right. So if you've made it this far in the episode and you're wondering what this has to do with being a vCISO or a CvCISO, hopefully it's obvious. If it's not, reach out to us. We'd love to share how being mentally healthy really translates into being a better version of a vCISO, CvCISO, father, parent, grandfather, whatever. It helps every part of your life, and you cannot overlook it. So don't go focus on being this awesome vCISO, CvCISO, because I got this training, I got this certification, I got the blah, blah, blah. Mentally, I'm a train wreck. Don't expect good results.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and where is your client's headspace at as well?
it's true.
So you can meet them there.
All right, good episode, guys. That was episode 50, some odd number 3 or
53.
something.
53.
Episode 54 next week.
Awesome.